So here are the instructions for testing and soldering Modeler's Brand Double-Density LED tape. I have here a 9-volt clip with a 9-volt battery. Red is pretty much always positive, black negative. The label here, positive and negative. So that clearly works. So for our purposes here, what we're going to do is cut a 3 LED section. It's about 1 inch long. Very close up, you'll see there's a pair of copper wires. This is not the style for all of them. Some of them are silver, some of them are bigger or smaller than the others, but there's always a pair of them right there. What we're going to do is cut exactly in between them, just like that. Now for this operation, you'll need a soldering iron, some solder, some wires to connect it to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 9-volt connector. If you're wiring this into a wall wart, what you'll want to do, if you want to do it directly, is take your wall wart, strip the ends, figure out which is positive and negative, and then attach those there. Or wire it anywhere into your circuit. What I'm going to try here first is a little trick. What you want to do is cut off several very small pieces of solder, and what we'll do is put this down and hold it in place. Take one of these little pieces of solder here, and this is why you want several in case you knock some off to the side. Put that on there. Okay, so we got a little bit of solder right there, and if this trick works for us, we'll be doing pretty good. First I want to heat up this wire just a little bit, get it ready. Technically you should heat the surfaces and then apply the solder. However, in this case, it's going to be just a little easier to... When last we left this, before the camera card got filled up, I just finished soldering the black. I'm going to melt that down into a little ball. You don't have to know how to solder to do this. However, you have to be willing to at least learn how to solder and get better at it. Give your wires a tug. If a little bit of solder won't hold the wire against a fairly solid tug, then it's not a good connection, and we can see this is a pretty good connection right there. But once this is soldered on, peel the backing, then stick into place wherever you happen to need it, such as around this tube. If you want to cover up this little end with a bit of glue or some other little bit of electrical tape, even if you want to be traditional about it. Now I put a switch in this and we're all set. You can see this is definitely a good connection going on. You can pick the tape up and put it back down. When it comes to heat shrinking, you don't necessarily have to. In this case, I want a longer term, very stable connection for this entire strip. So the one step that I've skipped for the camera here is that I put a little piece of electrical tape just around one of the leads to help isolate it from the other. You don't necessarily have to do that, but good practice makes for good longevity. So I'm going to slip this first piece of heat shrink over the area. I've cut it a little extra long just to give it a lot of extra strength going on, because the LED tape itself is very flexible, so I want the wiring to be relatively fixed and stable here, kind of like splinting it, but without the actual splint. You could also use a lighter to heat the heat shrink as well. Then you'll see I'm putting a second piece on here, which is much bigger. What I'm going to do here actually is I could just clip it right there, but in this case I know I'm going to use the full strip as is, so I'm willing to sacrifice one LED for the cause. In fact, I want to get a slightly longer piece than this, just for a little extra stability and strength. Said we're going to go over it, but last second, let's make sure, always double check your connections after you've soldered them and before you seal them away, because you don't want to find out they don't work later, and you do have function. So with this larger piece in place, now that piece of heat shrink is locked down and those wires are locked in there. Here's a piece I did a while ago which is much cooler. This whole area is just nice and rigid, so that's going to be very difficult to break by accident even when you do flex it. You see I'm getting a 90-degree angle here. The way the heat shrink conforms over these corners here and over that first LED, that guarantees that's going to lock down and stay in place, and there's nothing that's going to accidentally destroy that connection you got. And that's long-term reassurance. Over-engineer. Thanks for watching. See ya.